Shalom. Today I'm going to be sharing a brief commentary on this week's Torah portion and answering the question, what is God's remedy for healing? This week's Torah portion is called Metzorah, which means the leper. And it's found in Leviticus chapters 14 and 15. And it basically deals with the subject of leprosy, followed by the subject of bodily discharges which make one unclean. Now neither of these subjects is the most popular of conversational topics that people discuss. However, I believe that there is a very important message hidden in these verses that answer the question, what is God's remedy for healing? Now, as we begin this week's Torah portion, it begins with the subject of leprosy. And I want to read the first few verses there, which talk about that subject. In Leviticus chapter 14, verses 1 through 4. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "This shall be the law of the leper in the day of his cleansing. Now he shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall go out to the outside of the camp. Thus the priest shall look, and if the infection of leprosy has been healed in the leper, then the priest shall give orders to take 2 live clean birds and cedar wood and a scarlet string and hyssop for the one who is to be cleansed." So in these first few verses of the Torah portion, Leviticus chapter 14, God instructs Moses on how to handle this issue of leprosy. And specifically, when the person is healed from leprosy, this is how they are to be cleansed. Now, it talks about after the person is healed, but there is never a remedy, a way that this person is actually healed. It simply says they are healed. Now, as we read on in the next chapter, Leviticus 15, it deals with all these different bodily discharges which make one unclean, including a woman's monthly cycle. But it talks also in Leviticus chapter 15, verses 25 to 30, about this condition when a woman has a constant flow of blood that doesn't stop. And it says that it makes her unclean. And then it talks about that when she is healed from this, when she is, when the flow of blood stops, that she is to be cleansed through a certain regulation, a certain path of cleansing. The interesting thing is, again, though, there is no remedy for healing. There's no way prescribed for the leper or for the person with a constant flow of blood to be healed. So what is God's remedy for healing? Well, I believe what we don't read in these 2 chapters is what God wants us to really understand. And I believe we see an illustration of what God wants, how God does provide healing through a story in the New Testament where there is a woman with a constant flow of blood. It's found in Luke chapter 8. And in this situation, Yeshua was walking through a certain village and people were pressing around him. And there was a woman there who had a hemorrhaging condition where blood was constantly flowing, not just for a few days, not just for a few months, but for 12 years. This woman was in an unclean state for 12 years. She could not have a normal life for 12 years. She couldn't touch other people for 12 years because she was considered unclean. And this woman, who had spent all of her money on doctors trying to get help, but only got worse. She reached out when the crowds were pressing in on Yeshua. She touched the hem of his garment, and she was instantly healed from this hemorrhage, from this condition of a constant flow of blood. And then she tried to sneak away and disappear, but Yeshua stopped and he inquired about who was just healed because he felt power go out of his body. And she eventually came trembling at his feet. And he said to her, "Be at peace, my daughter, your faith has healed you." This woman was healed by faith in God. She believed that God alone could heal her, and he did, through Yeshua, the Messiah. Yeshua is also the Son of God. So, I believe this is the answer to our question. What is God's remedy for healing? It's God himself. There are lots of illnesses in this world, and some are curable, and some are not. And I believe that God allows these certain illnesses and conditions in this world for us to reach out to him and to come to him and to request from him healing. We see this in the situation with leprosy and in the condition of a constant flow of blood, a hemorrhaging condition in one's body that was unhealable at that time. But God alone can heal. You know, in Exodus chapter 15, we read a verse where the Lord is speaking to the sons of Israel, and he says, if you will give earnest heed, this is in Exodus 15:26, if you will give earnest heed to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you, which I put on the Egyptians. For I, the Lord, am your healer. Ani Adonai Rofecha. I am the Lord, your healer. I believe this is what God wants us to learn from this week's Torah portion. There are going to be situations in life that are beyond our control, that no man can help us, no man can deliver us, no man can heal us. And when man has no remedy for us, we must go to God, we must turn to him, and we must rely on him. God is your healer. Adonai Rofecha, the Lord is your healer. I hope you've enjoyed this brief teaching today. If you have, please like it on YouTube. I invite you to read my full commentary on my website, jewelsofjudaism.com, under the title, The Lord Your Healer. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.